Hello, hello, hello. I wish I was a stand up comedian right now. I could have told you a joke or two. Unfortunately, I can't. And we are just waiting for the stars to arrive. And I'm hoping that they do so soon, very soon. I don't see them walking down here, though. And for any people who don't know, I am Kiran Malhotra. I am one of the curators of this festival. Thank you so much. I have to say that you guys are a gift to us by being here with us. Thank you so very much. It's amazing how I see a sea of faces and waiting for, of course, the star to come. But she's my Hamnam. So namesake, Hamnam, Kiran. So I'm really waiting for her to arrive. Unless I'm half an hour too early. I don't know what time she's coming here. She's on her way. Thank you so. Oh, I welcome Anjali Arondekar on the stage. Give her a big hand. Come, Anjali. No, you come. We're not waiting for people. Anjali, aaja. There she is. A big hand for Anjali Arondekar. I don't know if you were here for the earlier panel that she moderated with Devdutt Patnaik. She's amazing, she's wonderful, and she's a very dear friend. She also happens to be a professor at UC Santa Cruz, and I have been associated with them for 17 years now. So I'm really happy that Anjali is here. She's amazing. Just wait for a lovely, lovely panel. Oh, there she is. There she's walking down. The lady with the green blouse. Yay!
I think we need two new bottles. These are old, somebody else. Do we have two mics?
Yeah, I'm going to get you this one, Anjali, in a moment.
No problem.
Not at all. You're worth the wait every second. Yeah.
She says that to every girl she meets.
So this has been a 48 hours of a whirlwind. Thank you for being here with us. This is our final panel for the day with two amazing women on the stage, Kiran Rao and Anjali Arondekar. I will let Anjali do the honors of introducing Kiran Rao, though you don't need any of that. My Miss Lapata lady, of course we know that about her. And I'm now going to do a little boring thing, which is to say that I'm between you and the two of them right now. But I have to introduce Anjali to you.
Oh, yeah, bahut ho gaya.
Bahut ho gaya, okay. I still have to do it. She was the director of the Center for South Asian Studies, and they have supported us since 2019. It's amazing how they have supported us through this. She is, of course, her research is amazing. She engages with comparative histories of colonialism, bad word, caste, great word, sexuality, with a focus on South Asia and the broader Indian Ocean world. Wow. We are all here, so that's the broader Indian Ocean world. She's the author of 2 award-winning monographs on British and Portuguese colonial South Asia. She is on her next project, ready to serve, ready to come out in publication, and it's tentatively called Oceanic Sex, Archives of Caste and Indenture. And it's amazing how she's been put together, all this. I have to say one thing about Anjali. There's nothing that she doesn't know. And there's nothing that people don't know her, and she knows everybody.
As a caste oppressed person, I'm happy to say I follow the goddess Saraswati.
Oh,
Going back to Devdutt.
so the LSD
With
part.
irony.
She's also Saraswati, and she's also Durga. And if you didn't see her,
Let's move on.
I know. Unless you didn't see it earlier, she's LSD for sure. But I have a small housekeeping announcement to make. Can you please put in your calendars 26, 27 September 2026. That's when next Sala is. Yeah.
I also want to give a big shout out to the organizers, Kiran, of course, Mayu, Ambika, the millions and millions of young volunteers who are trying their best to look entertained but are here under duress, but have been Really, there are so many people who've done so much to make this happen. So I want to thank you for making us feel so welcome.
Thank you so much for being here, Anjali, Kiran. Amazing. I just have to one more announcement. Thoda sa lamba hai. I want to thank our volunteers who have been with us. Amazing, amazing support group. Amazing. And I do not know where the whip master is. Sangeeta is somewhere around. Thank you. And I also want to thank our sponsors. Without that, this doesn't happen. All the dedication of filmmakers, writers, artists, you know, this whole exchange and this whole under the, as somebody called it, canopy. So under the canopy, it is just amazing. Thank you for the confluence. Thank you for the conclave. Thank you for being here. I'll let you, Anjali, now it's all yours.
Thank you, Kiran. I think I need the other mic.
Oh, sorry. No, it's right here.
Jai Bheem, Salam, Namaskar. How's everyone doing? We are lucky we're ending with the best part of the day. So, but before I begin, I want to repeat what I said this morning. We live in heartbreaking and untenable times. So I want to take a moment here to wish for life, love, and liberation for all. And I hope somewhere along the line we will see the peace we have been waiting for. It's with great pleasure that I am looking forward to my conversation with Kiran. And as the other Kiran said, there's most of you know her quite well. But I sort of wanted to begin with my encounter. And I mysteriously messaged Kiran and told her that with Lapata Ladies. I'm old enough, grew up in Bombay, and in my misspent youth, there was a terrible queer organization which did wonderful work and was around for 25 years, which had the unfortunate name called Labia, Lesbians and Bisexuals in Action. Don't laugh, people, we did good work. But also, as one of those labia types, we had a thing called Lapata Ladies, because we're like, where are the homosexuals, right? So our way of looking for like-minded people was to say Lapata Ladies. So when I saw Kiran, the title of Kiran's film, I thought, well, maybe she had found something out that we didn't know. But of course, that's for another day and another film. Quite. So I have watched and admired Kiran Rao's work for many, many years, from Dhobi Ghat to this new wonderful film. And I know that I heard someone, when I was doing my research, ask you, why did it take you so long to make another film? And I was horrified. I was like, that's not long at all. You know, as a historian, it takes me at least 15 years to write another book. But the journey between Dhobi Ghat and Lapata Ladies is what I hope we can talk about today. But I also want to mention that Kiran is both behind the scenes and also in the field, so to speak. She's a director, producer, writer. Started off as an assistant director, has really sort of worked her way into having the kinds of privileges that she has today. And she also founded a wonderful film company, and I'm looking forward to seeing the new film, Humans in Loop. And the company is called Kindling Films. And I urge us all to support the film because it supports grassroots filmmakers, new emerging voices. And in addition to that, she also does a lot of philanthropic work in an organization called Pani Foundation, which does a lot of stuff around sustainability in rural Maharashtra, something that is very close to my heart. So we can go on and on and on, but I would rather we start with Kiran and some questions for her. So Kiran, I wanted to begin with a really broad question, but one that I think many of us who saw your first film and then have seen this film have been curious about. And there are obviously leitmotifs, and which we'll get to anon. But say a little bit about your cinematic arc. Because Dhobi Ghat felt, I don't, how many of you have seen Dhobi Ghat? Okay, fantastic. So for those of you who haven't, you know, see it as soon as you can. So if you've seen Dhobi Ghat and if you've seen Lapata Lady, there's a different feeling to both the films. The audiences are not that you can curate your audiences, but the genres you're playing with are very different. The characters are very different. And of course, we expect diversity in brilliant filmmakers. But I wanted you to say a little bit more. Not about, oh, you found a brilliant story. We'll get to that. But why from that genre to this genre, and what you learned from your first film, which did really well as well, but in different circles.
So Dhobi Ghat was sort of, for me, a very personal film, and it came through my experiences of living in Bombay. I had grown up in Calcutta, and coming to Bombay was, in some way, I felt very much at home, and I realized that I was in the midst of millions of other people completely unlike me, but who equally felt at home on this island, And I was really fascinated by the fact that this island over, centuries has been a refuge for people from all countries, all kinds of backgrounds, and their lives sort of, brush against each other and overlap and intersect and change each other knowingly or unknowingly. And I felt very much like exploring that, because as a filmmaker straight out of film school, I wanted to also, do something diaristic, something close to my, my own experience, but also something a little bit artistic, something that I felt I could as an artist explore in the craft. So, multiple formats, trying to do, these different points of view of seeing the city and the city itself being a character, were all things that I wanted to explore through my first film. So it ended up being a little bit of a diary of my own experience and people that I felt I knew very well. And it is what it is. I was very delighted to be able to make it, but I came to film quite late in my sort of, I suppose, artist's journey. I used to love to act, I used to love theatre, but like film I came to only when I did my master's. And I had sort of been schooled in really, really art house, sort of the greats of cinema. And I didn't know, commercial cinema all that well. And so you're always, after your first film, struck by this sort of vacuum for your second film. You want to do more, you want to do better and bigger, but it's almost like the challenge is retaining your voice from the first and then taking this quantum leap into a whole, bigger genre, different, something that's more maybe mainstream, so to speak. So it was a bit of a struggle looking for my voice for my second film, and I was in no hurry really, because I have had the privilege in my life of choosing what I do, having the I suppose wherewithal to not have to make something for a living. And so I took my time figuring out what I wanted to do next, and I have a whole bunch of stories that I was writing which I never ended up making, but I will now, when I came across the story of Lapata Ladies, which was in 2018. So a good 7 years had passed. I'd had my son in the interim, and I was very delighted to be a mum and give him a lot of time and mostly produce. But yeah, I think when this story came along, the second film, in genre, I kind of almost immediately knew, but the film already had the element of satire and humor in it. I mean, with the log line, two brides are swapped because of a veil. But I wanted to sort of make it a lot funnier and a lot more broad and mainstream than even the original script was. And it kind of gave me the opportunity to test my mainstream legs, so to speak.
Well, let's stay with that for a little bit. I mean, here at Sala, we've had the privilege of having, Coco, Konkana Sen, Tanuja Chandra. I mean, different kinds of filmmakers, and I'm going to use gender today, people. I'm not going to say woman, and we'll get to that in a minute. But we've had filmmakers who are risky, who dabble in multiple genres. But one of the things that has come up over and over again is this kind of segregation between these films, like your first film, and you yourself have used the word mainstream quite a bit. So I want to help us understand, is the mainstream a prescription that you fall into, or is not what you are doing, or so many, I mean, the Homebound, I can think of so many films that would not have been considered, entre guillemets, mainstream, that everybody are seeing, right? And the gays are super popular right now, so, you know. And more labia, right? We need more labia. So I'm being a little bit funny, but I do want to understand what that means, because I feel like mainstream is what you make main, yeah, right? So, and especially as a filmmaker who's as careful, as deliberate, and I think that's the beauty of your work. Say more about what you were thinking when you said mainstream.
That's a great question, honestly. I've toyed with it a lot because I had the huge luxury of having Dhobi Ghat go to cinemas, which honestly in 2011 was not easy to put a film like that out. Amir was in it, so it was plus because we could push that, but it would have been wrongly marketed if we had said it was an Amir Khan film. It wasn't really. So those were different times. I don't think Dhobi Ghat could release today. But having understood the market and how the industry works for now 20 odd years, I do believe that there are films that are more likely to succeed in cinemas, and mainstream is sort of judged much more by how well a film can do in a cinema. And Lapata Ladies, for everything else, actually did much better in cinemas, oddly enough, after it came on Netflix.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing that actually happened. It was in cinemas, and there was great word of mouth, but thanks to a wonderful global policy that Netflix has, we have to put the Netflix logo on our posters. And that's a great way to tell people to sit at home and watch your film, right? So we had a fairly, I think, good couple of 8 weeks before it came on Netflix, and it kind of blew up on Netflix. And the film was still running in cinemas when it came on Netflix. And the cinema occupancy went up because people were like, oh, isn't this the film that everybody saw? It's still in the cinemas. So they went to the cinemas to watch it again. But if you ask me, I mean, I want to know if it was mainstream, why I could not have done 100 crores. A mainstream film is kind of, I think, and this is, I feel like something that I would love to open up for discussion, but I think mainstream films are films for men.
100%.
Genuinely. It may not always be the case, because a film called Crew, which had 3 gorgeous women in it, did really, really well. And perhaps unless you have 3 gorgeous women, headlining your film, I'm not sure you can.
Manju Bai is pretty gorgeous, right?
Right,
but she's my favorite character. So.
Yeah, so I think my definition of mainstream really is, because in India still it is women still do not have the sort of economic independence to choose what film is going to be watched in a family. They don't often, women don't go so often to watch films in our country. And, as a result, films are made primarily for men. So I would say that's how I define mainstream, weirdly.
No, I think that is helpful. I feel like, we kind of intuitively know it, but I think when you spell it out for us, and, Crew was who doesn't love Taboo, right? Yeah. Crew was fantastic, but it was also a time pass film. It was slapstick, in a way that, Kajol forever, right? I'm a Kajol fan. Why? Don't know, but I love her, right? So our tastes are allowed to be promiscuous, right? Yeah. That's the beauty of I think, Indian cinema, is that it allows us to traffic and travel in worlds unseen. But I want you to say a little bit more about, I don't know if you had a role in the marketing, and I know probably, maybe not, but one of the ways in which Lapita Ladies, and when it was, the Oscar nomination, and I live in Los Angeles, so was marketed, at least on the venues I saw, was as it has a social message, right? The idea of, this is a film about India, it's about social justice, and again, I'm all down for that. But the reason I'm asking is twofold. One is, we all know we live in a moment when figures like Kiran lead very precarious lives. So I urge you to be careful. They need to travel, they need to be able to make their art, those things are increasingly under surveillance and censorship. So you're kind of in a balancing act. You have to keep that in mind because you want people to watch your film. But on the other hand, because you're making a film about Lapata ladies, the burden of talking about social justice or gender justice has to be part of your story. So tell me a little bit, without putting yourself in a way that you can't go back to India. Hey, John Abraham has
Happy
come
to
out
stay
and
with you
said
guys.
Hindi films are censored, all right? So we are definitely at a different moment now. So say a little bit about the management and the balancing act, not just of being, a woman filmmaker, but not just of resources, but content.
So, I mean, interestingly, the social messaging of the film wasn't at all on the, as much on the front. We didn't do it as much on the front foot in India. It was a more, I think, an easier way for, and the academy kind of audience to get into the film because it just seemed a bit outlandish that women are still in veil. I was asked, do women still do that? Is it still a thing? And so no, in India it was about two swapped brides. There was not much in the marketing, at least. But speaking of censorship or the kinds of subjects that we make our films about, I mean, we are all much more careful than we ever were when we were making anything to do with anything. So, so for instance, this film was originally, when Biplab wrote it, he had, Biplab Goswami was the original writer of the film, and he had set the film in Bihar. And, when we were making the film, I mean, when we were rewriting it and we had a final screenplay, I was really very much of the opinion that it should not be Bihar. For multiple reasons. One of them is, of course, we are a really litigious nation who get upset about many things, and they would be like, "ऐसा तो हमारे यहाँ नहीं होता है, कैसे दिखाया आपने, बिहार में तो ऐसा नहीं होता, ऐसे तो कैसे, there'd be too many authenticity hurdles we'd have to, cross. But that apart, it was also a way for us to kind of talk about whatever we were talking about in a more broad way and make it, because this is a pratha or a kind of a tradition that's there in many, many parts of the country, and it would be very easy for us to just say, in Bihar these things happen. It was really talking much more about a mentality and about a perspective on these traditions. So we made it into Nirmal Pradesh. We made our own state, and it actually, it was great because
No Aadhaar card is needed there.
Exactly. Yeah, and guess why Nirmal Pradesh? Because we were looking for, we had a lot of vehicles in the film and we needed number plates. And we were like, we need some, like we have MH for Maharashtra or WB for West Bengal. We were like, we need something that's not there in the other 50 states. So what's not there? NP is not there. So my production designer came up with Nirmal Pradesh because ye Nirmal jagah hai. It's a soft state. Things are not as terrible because two women getting lost in India, I mean, pretty much anything can happen if you put your mind to it. And we did want to show that there are places in this country where, two women would be safe. They'd find, refuge. In fact, they'd find community and they'd find people who encourage them. So, Nirmal Pradesh. So really, I think when it comes to censorship or it comes to trying to walk, do that balancing act in a place where there are so many sensitivities, I think I hate to say this, but we're just getting super creative about it. Yes. We are being incredibly, what's the word for it? Like elastic. We are able to shape-shifting. We make a man into a woman if we have, all kinds of things to sidestep censure.
I love the story of Nirmal Pradesh. I mean, it gives us a kind of utopia at a time when we desperately need one. Yeah. I just want to say two things as a boring historian. One is this veil thing is very old. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. It's still happening, but it's also very much in the archives. Like I'm doing a book on Mauritius and indenture, and there are lots of cases of women who on the ship. They're called jihadi marriages, you know, where they get married under one veil and give another name, but they're actually really married and they swap. So I think these stories of veils are less about hidden truths, but more about pathways to freedom. So we can think about that in another way. And the other thing I would say about Lapita Ladies is another moniker of the Indian women's movement between the World War I and II was Sisters Under the Sari. And they used that because they wanted to unify people from different religions and different regions, right? Which gets me to my next question. Your first film, Dhobi Ghat, and I will ask this question because it's my job to chavi marao a little bit, so here comes the fun part. So, is your first film was a film about an urban space. It was about, as you said, you know, self-consciously reflexive. And this film is about, and I'll put this in quotation marks, rural India, which is both real but also phantasmatic in your. So say a little bit more about. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have made the film about rural India, but you know, there's always, as a feminist who works in South Asia, I'm also a little fatigued when people run to rural India to talk about the simplicity and beauty of it, which obviously you're not doing. It's a smarter film. But say more about. I know you anticipated that, so tell me more about why you picked.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course, the story was originally set in a village in rural India when we got it, and you know, I've lived in cities all my life. I grew up in Calcutta, studied in Bombay and Delhi. My parents live in Bangalore, but I think for many of us who've lived long enough in India, I've lived my entire life in the country, especially in, you know, up until I started taking planes, which was like literally post-college. I don't think I took planes till then. I've seen the length and breadth of this country, lived in villages for shorter periods of time, but I have. And we all feel like we know in the heartland. We know what rural India is like. And what actually I was grateful for was that the film was set 20 years ago, because rural India now is nothing like you would actually expect because of, you know, technology and the internet and everything else. So, you know, it was actually, you know, I was really excited about being able to explore what I thought would be, you know, this whole idea of it's not, I wanted to make something that didn't show the India that we are so accustomed to seeing, which is often either too beautified and like too, you know, from a Western gaze, it's just gorgeous, or it's poverty porn and it's all really, really terrible. And striking that middle ground was difficult for me initially because, for one, we couldn't find villages that were beautiful anymore. They'd all become concrete. Now the government gives you money to concretize your houses. So you have concrete houses. You have concrete streets within the villages. So to find a village with cobblestone streets and mud houses was not easy. And at the same time, there's such beautiful craft. I mean, you know, the Sohrai paintings and, you know, the kinds of roofs that they have in different parts of rural India. I wanted to, we had created our own state. I could do just about anything, right? So we really, really thought about how we could make a very realistic village, a village which actually is a village. We shot in a village in Madhya Pradesh. But also, you know, create, like you said, it's slightly fantastical because it is very, very aesthetic and beautiful, and you know, it's the kind of village that I would have loved to live in, you know, 25 years ago. So it was consciously a little bit of both. You know, I tried not to make a perfectly Khadi Fab India village, because that's, you know, what everybody would have loved, these very perfect cotton saris. But I was also shooting a film in the early 2000s, and the early 2000s are about the worst time to choose as a period film, because they're literally no period at all. They're a period that you know, a lot of young women were wearing polyester saris, and that's really hard to find that kind of polyester, because now we have all the China-made, you know, polyester sarees that are really slippery and look like they are ikkat. You know, it's all kinds of things that we had to do to make it look period, but still realistic, and not, you know, some very gorgeous Jamdani village.
But did this, I mean, we'll move to another topic soon, but just one last question on that. I think this is super interesting, just to figuring out how the design and the kind of production details that, of course, those of us who watch the films, I didn't pay attention to the license plates, but of course that's as important part of the story. Just wanted to ask you, having finished this film and having done Dhobi Ghat, do you still see a kind of divide between rural and urban? I mean, we'll touch on the questions you're interested in a minute, but did this experience enough, I mean, sort of convince you, or in fact, just make you realize that there is a stark difference between, even if this village is made up in some ways, between this rural urban. I'm saying this because India, like the United States, is deeply divided. It's polarized. Families don't get along. Generations are fighting. And it's not just communalism. It's caste. Every single day, as you know, a Dalit Bahujan person is murdered, raped, or killed. Right? So this is, we live in a polarized world. True. So, and spatiality is part of that, right? So I'm wondering, because you probably did a lot of recce's and went to a lot of places, did you leave thinking, and I don't mean to sound idealistic, but did you leave thinking, well, we are more connected than I thought we were? Or did you leave thinking, no, we are more divided than I thought we were?
You know, I left thinking that in so many essential ways, things have not changed. I was actually constantly in people's homes in the villages and meeting women there, and in so many, I feel, very, very deep ways things have not changed, and in that way I'll never feel that we are as connected, because I come from the privilege of education, from all the privileges that Savarnas have. I've been an urban person all my life, so I can see the stark difference between the opportunities that so many of the women in villages have lacked, and the difference between that and my opportunities. So I do think that there's a lot of difference that still persists to this day. At the same time, I mean, we are a gargantuan country and it's so hard to generalize about anything. I met some incredible women who, despite living in Ghungat, were incredibly strong and sort of powerful women in their own homes. You meet people who've made that, kind of like difficult journey towards finding a place for themselves, even in the village, coming, working despite like the fact that there's opposition from their families. We work in Pani Foundation with lots and lots of women in Maharashtra, and it's absolutely heartening to see most of our farmer groups, actually, a majority of our farmer groups are women, all women farmer groups. And given a chance, women excel at anything that they take on. So it's, I think, a bit of both. I mean, when I travel in Maharashtra and I go to the villages, the Pani villages, I feel I'm much closer to the women in some of those villages than I am to, there's not much difference, except that they just haven't had the opportunities that I've had. And that is always really, really, difficult to stomach, that we've not in 70 years created the same opportunities for women everywhere. I mean, I would offer that even in cities. For instance, I was in Delhi not long ago, and people in a little lane in South Delhi wanted to take a picture with me, and he called his wife out, and she had such a long ghungat. And I was like, "Aap photo kaise lenge?" So she was like, "No, there are men in the lane." And I was like, "Just lift it up. Have you seen my film?" And she's like, "Nahi," and all that. And she literally lifted it up for the picture and put it back down. So, and this is Delhi. This is, so, I mean, we're a really interesting country. We'll have, women pilots. We'll have women doing, running the government. And at the same time, we have women who are struggling to have a voice in their own families.
Yeah, I think we need to replace choli ke piche kya hai with ghungat ke piche kya hai. But I wanted to, before we move, we'll come back to Lapada Ladies, because I want to hear so many, I've heard so many interviews, and I know you have so many beautiful stories, and that I was delighted to know that you made up Manjubai's character. And I want to hear why. She's just fantastic. But let's talk about something a little bit bigger. which is, I mean, and this is the closing session, and this sala has been organized around sort of breaching borders, thinking beyond the limits of representation. So let's talk a little bit about gender and representation. And I know you've been asked this question, and I'm sure every single woman, filmmaker, or anyone in power in the Indian film industry has been asked this question, which is, why are there lapata ladies in the. But I want to take it a different way. I mean, what's the most beautiful thing about Dhobi Ghat is the male characters, right? I think the agon of your female character, it was less interesting to me. It was, I'm a big Smita Patil fan, so I went to see the film because her son was in it, right? So seeing the men in your film are, to me, gendered subjects in a way that we don't often get to see. We don't get to see men who emote. We don't get to see men who have brotherhoods, not in the terrible way, but like in a way that allows them to talk to each other, and are also anti-patriarchal, right? So say, and I've been really struck with that, even with this love, which is about these women who get swapped, but it's also about the sweet pain of these men who want to find them. And so say a little bit about that, because I feel like we need more of that. Feminism can't happen if we don't have feminist men. So say more about it.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up because, in speaking about the women in the film, and it's so obvious, all the things that I'm trying to say and do when it comes to women's rights and, women having opportunity. But it's just never going to happen unless we include men in the conversation. And I, in my life, have been incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by men who are incredibly supportive, who are liberal, far-thinking men, and lots of us have that. And we need to represent those men so that other men can see that there are such wonderful men around us. We've come thus far also because we've had a lot of great support from men in our lives. And I wanted to, the character of Deepak was really interesting, in fact, for us, because he is a little bit not so smart, right? But as a character, your heart does go out to him because he is well-intentioned, and he's brave and strong in a strange way, despite being not very smart. So, I think it was a great way for us to show that it's possible to be strong even though you're crippled with the weakness of losing your wife. It's possible to love to the point of crying for your wife. It's you can be a hero even if you're not the smartest person in the room, or the strongest. And I think sort of creating heroes among my male characters who are flawed, who are gentle, who are sort of again kind of a little do paisa kam, as we called Deepak when we were making the film, is a way of saying that.
But he has the feels, yaar. You look at him and you're like, yaar, just you want to hug him. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I kind of feel like that really opens up this very, very, kind of toxic, kind of masculine way of portraying men, all the men who are heroes in our films all along. There's this particular kind of way men have to be in cinema for women to like them. And I wanted to, sort of challenge that. So I'm glad you said that. I wanted a sort of green flag man whom we can all sort of,
I would say there can be straight men who are feminine, right? We always assume it has to be a queer form, and I think I liked the fact that you didn't just rustle up some queer person there just to make it a diverse project, which I think can also be super fatiguing for those of us who are lapata oftentimes. So let's stay with this thing about gender and representation. One of the allegories, right, in your work is this seeing, not seeing, and of course the veil is the obvious, but a story that us boring historians, academics use a lot, of course, is Ismat Chughta's Lehaf, which I don't know how many of you know, but which is also a story about you can see, but you may not be able to tell, or you may not want to tell. right? So the unseeing doesn't have to be about speech. It can be about withholding as well. So and the cinematic space is so much about the consumption of a visuality, right? So I wanted to understand, I mean, clearly it's a leitmotif for you, and you've spent years thinking about it. So say more about, we're watching, whereas the cinema is a place where you feel like you're in a peephole, right? Because if you're lucky enough to be in a theater, I still think we need to see movies in theaters where you feel like you're looking through people and seeing something. So say more about that seeing. What is it that you want us to see or not see?
I think I've always been fascinated by sort of human behavior. It's each and every human being just is so particular and different and has such a unique sort of way of interacting with the world and representing themselves and sort of going about their lives, and I am very interested in that. And I think Dhobi Ghat was all about that, the idea that, of course, I wanted to use these 4 very different perspectives on the city from 4 people from very different backgrounds, and we tried to use different kinds of visual formats with the video film and photographs and the film to sort of further represent that. But I really feel that about life. I mean, each person brings to life their ideas, their experience, their very unique apperceptive background, and I feel that that's what makes cinema really rich, if you can include it. And perhaps one of the things, going back to what you were saying about being mainstream, I think one of the things about mainstream films is that tonally it just has to be, people are homogenous. There's no particularity, there's no specificity, there's no something that, I mean, there'll be a character tick in a person, but you don't actually ever get into the person's head. And I think...
I want to just ask you something, because obviously you have thought about this way more than I have. I mean, the one thing that we've all noticed, not just on streaming platforms, but in mainstream Hindi cinema, even Shah Rukh Khan's movies, etc., is that the regional cinema moniker is finally falling down, right? I mean, we don't have to like yawn at Bengali films anymore. Sorry, no offense. Marathi films are great. Kannada, I mean, I'm half Kannadiga. Kannada films are great. So suddenly we have not just the big stars of these films, but we have their aesthetics. Right, so when you see, the Param Sundari, which is a very, funny film, but when Janhvi Kapoor is trying to do the South Indian aesthetic, whatever that is, right? So they're bringing different, so the mainstream used to be everyone was Kapoor and Khanna, right? And I was like, yaar, bahut bacche honge unke, right? So nobody was called Arondekar or, why not, yaar? We need to be represented. But bahut ho gaya na. But abhi bhi every second munda, that terrible movie Savarya or Saria, whatever it is. Oh yaar, please, these kids, I mean, I was in Bombay with the movie. I was like, why are people going to see this movie? I mean, more power to these kids, they need a job, but But that child is also named Kapoor, right? So my point is, mainstream, for whatever financial creative reasons, has been flooded with these regional superstars, right? Who are taking, so so that also, how do you think about that, right? Because
I mean, no, I sort of more meant that the characters in the film kind of bring different kinds of perspective, and I feel like within the mainstream, within this, Lapata was my version of mainstream, and there is Param Sundari version of mainstream, and so I feel like there's potential even within any kind of cinema to bring in different perspectives and different sorts of characters that have layers and have different ways of seeing the world. But speaking of regional cinema, I mean, it actually has literally, because of its incredible popularity now in India, we find ourselves at a point where there is, like you said, no such thing as regional star or different language. These films are being consumed the way anyone would a Hindi film or anything else, and I think that's an incredible place that we find ourselves, because audiences today are not what they used to call the 1-inch barrier of subtitles, nobody feels anymore thanks to COVID and our, months of sitting in front of Netflix. So I mean, I'm delighted by it, but I don't necessarily feel that just because they are from. Of course, there are good films and there are not good films anywhere. It doesn't actually matter the language. It doesn't matter the culture even. And it's wonderful to be able to see different kinds of films, but there are often super misogynistic, problematic films coming from the South as well. So it's not like everything they're doing is amazing. But yeah, so I'm happy that we are watching all of it. We have access to all of it.
No, and also there are male centered films that can also be equally, challenging for us to think about and think with. So I have to give the audience time to ask you questions. I wanted to sort of end with returning us to Love with Our Ladies. I mean, everyone here has seen the film and we all have our favorite characters. But I wanted to hear more about Manjubai because I read somewhere, I can't remember where. Two things. One, I was very surprised when I read this that the screenwriters for your Love with Our Ladies actually wrote for soap operas.
Yeah.
Is that true? Yes.
I
Okay.
do.
So as I have, and the second thing was that you wanted this character of Manju, Tai, not Tai, but Bai, to arrive. So say more about, because she's such a fun, boss, badass, weird, and surprising character. And I'm sure every one of you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. So.
Interestingly, the film originally was written by Biplab Goswami, who was not a soap opera writer. He's teaches at SRFTII and screenplay teacher actually. But the person who wrote the screenplay was Sneha Desai, who is an incredibly talented and sought after soap opera writer. And I got someone called Divyanidhi Sharma to do sort of dialect, like work on the language of it. And he actually created the character, well, not created, but refined the character of Manohar, the policeman. And he gave us some wonderful scenes when he was writing it. And he also is a writer of soaps. But I think what they brought to it was this chatpataness that I really wanted. I wanted the film to be really alive with of course the juiciness of language, but also how people react to things. I mean, in soap operas you have what they call the Madras cut, where they react 3 times. You'll cut to the person being shocked at something, and I think they bring some of that aesthetic to this film. Like Sneha's dialogue is just like tight and punchy. Everything had to go with a punch. And honestly, it was a great learning curve for me as well, because I sort of lean towards subtlety perhaps too much. So it was great to be balanced by Sneha. But Manjumai was because Biplab, when he wrote the screenplay, had this pool comes to this Patila railway station, and there's a stall, but it's run by an elderly lady and her husband, and she's taken in by them, and there's no real threat for her at all. She has they're very welcoming and they look after her up until the time she leaves. And when Sneha and I were writing it, I was like, we have a place here, because actually in the film what Sneha and I were talking about was how to have many different kinds of women's experiences represented in the film. You have the grandmother, you have the mother-in-law, you have the sister-in-law. We wanted to have many different kinds of experiences in the film and perspectives. Each of them is a different character, But I was like, can we have a woman who has been successful, shall we say, or has been content living on her own? Can we create an independent woman in the film who lives by her own rules and is happy and has been able to be financially independent and successful and happy? And Sneha went off and wrote Manjumai, which genuinely is also my favorite character in the film, because we felt we needed someone to represent the single woman, the single mother, all the women who do it for themselves, who actually leave abusive marriages. We wanted to set up a woman who does this and tell women that it's totally fine to live on your own. You know, it's absolutely great. Marriage is not for everyone. Children are not for everyone. You know, you can do this on your own. And I think Sneha really hit it out of the park with Manju Mai.
That's a beautiful and fantastic story. I just want to say one small thing is that when I was doing some research on the film, I found on some chat group, some child had posted a TikTok video or something about how all these young people are going on trains in Wales just as a homage to your film. So I think if you have and I think their idea is very different, but if you have a talented research assistant, you should have them hunted up. I think it would be really fun. So we have a little bit of time for questions, and I know you have many. So if you have a question, raise your hand loud and proud, and we will get to you. I see y'all. I got y'all. Well, let's start with yes. Thank you so much. Yes. We have a non-Lapita lady who will be traveling over to you. So the person over there who raised your hand, yeah. If you could just
keep
Kiran
your hand
who you
raised.
are as well, so it's less anonymous. Just tell her to give her your name. So. And if you can, remember, we have a lot of questions, so make it a question, not a comment. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much. My name is Radhika, and I absolutely loved Lapata Ladies as a film. And one of the things that really stood out to me was because you've kind of created this other sort of land where everything is possible, you have a character like the police officer who is Ravi Kishan, who, for people who are familiar with Bhojpuri cinema, it's a very sort of controversial figure within that, especially when you think about subverting the norms of what a man can be. And I think the whole film, I was almost like sitting with a little bit of dread of like, oh God, it's about to happen. And then at the end of it, it was just this beautiful twist. And I just wanted to ask a little bit more about that experience of working with someone like him who has such a sort of regional stronghold and has such an incredible presence as well.
Thank you. No, I'd rather answer to go because actually it's a great question because Ravi Kishan Amir was very keen to play this part, and he did a test for the part, and I loved the test, but I really wanted Ravi Kishan to play the part, and he very graciously, he loved the story. We went and narrated it to him, but Ravi ji interestingly had done 750 films or something. Up until this film was made, some colossal number of films, and is a successful actor, but has actually always felt, and possibly it's true, that has never got his due. He's always felt he's not had his due, and when he got this role, he just literally was delighted to jump into it. And but interestingly, it was also the time in which he was fighting the UP elections. So he was balancing, all kinds of things at the time when we were shooting, and he was doing double shifts. And it was, because he's one of those actors who's like a workhorse, who's able to kind of get in there. He's actually comes from a school of acting where they don't give him dialogue because he's so good. They just have to tell him the scene, and he'll take off and just, extempore, just give off some fabulous lines. And I was like, no, Raviji, you have to stick to the screenplay. He was quite worried about it because he's never in his life learnt dialogues. So it was quite an interesting experience. And, kudos to him. He was so supportive. He, in terms of tone, bringing him to the level that I wanted him. He's accustomed to playing to the gallery, and he played it exactly the way I wanted, worked so well with me, and I'm really lucky to have had him.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah, but one sec, the mic is here. Let's just go. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Bella Desai. It was a great session, great questions and answers. My question is about Dhobi Ghat. And speaking about borders, the music of Dhobi Ghat was awesome. And then so I remember looking it up, and that it was by an Argentinian music composer, the fabulously talented Gustavo Santolaya. So my question is, how did you at that time cross that border and decide to get somebody like him to compose the music for Dhobi Ghat?
Thank you. Great question. Actually, you know, I was meant to work with Ram Sampath, who did this film even then, but somehow Ram and I just never managed to make it work. And I found it hard to find the sound for Dhobi Ghat because it wasn't a film that I just automatically wanted. You know, there were no songs, and in India, you know, background score isn't something that composers are very excited about. They're usually accustomed to giving you songs, and background is often done by other people, other composers. And it was around the time, I mean, it was a couple of years after I'd watched Babel and Motorcycle Diaries, and I absolutely loved, and Brokeback Mountain, absolutely. And I love Gustavo's work. He just, with so little, is able to sort of communicate so much and connect so many little sort of feelings within very small phrases of music. So I kind of just out of the blue wrote to him and asked if I could come and show him the film. He said yes. I flew to LA, the first time I'd ever been in my life, I think. And then met him, went to his house, and he saw the film, and he was like, yeah, okay, let's do it, and did it. So yeah, it was a bit of a dream come true. I never expected that I would actually be able to get through to him and that he would agree. And he was absolutely wonderful as a collaborator. He came to India. He was so excited about working with Indian instruments. We worked with a Rudra Veena player, we worked with a flautist and a Pakhavaj player, and he loves creating little moments with different kinds of sound. So yeah, we really enjoyed collaborating on that.
These are wonderful questions because they also reflect the complexity of Kiran's art and detail. So I thank you for so if you could stand up.
Yeah, so much.
Everybody who's raised their hand will come to you.
Hi, first of all, thank you for the past 45 minutes or so. I think it was one of the most enriching recent evenings, both by inputs and thoughts from Anjali and Kiran yourself. So my question is really about identity. I think both your films, Dhobi Ghat and Lapata Ladies, have a lot to do with identity. And while it seems very intuitive, identity should be a personal journey, we see often it's laced a lot with what society has to offer. So how do you think we can protect the next generation and also the continuing generation, from being a social performance and rather nurture it as a personal journey?
Wow, great question. Thank you so much. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I feel identity, unfortunately, in especially more traditional communities in India, is entirely determined for people by their elders, by their community, and there's so little room to negotiate one's personality, one's identity for oneself. And I feel really strongly about that. And I think especially for women, for queer people, for people from minorities, for Dalits, it's always a hard-fought and hard-won battle to actually be accepted the way you are and be allowed to, have the equal opportunity despite, whatever it is that you've chosen to be as a person, as a human being. So I think, if I did have to, it always will find its way into my films, but I think if there's anything that I would like that young people, or especially young women, think about, is that one of the big things I've noticed about myself and all the women in my life and all the women that I know is that we're just so accustomed to putting other people before us, very, very accustomed to, sort of being the nurturers, being the people who absorb, being the people who adjust. And I would really, really hope that young people and parents of young people encourage, especially girls, but anyone, to just be who they are and, take responsibility for that. You then live, you find your way in life. And I was very fortunate to have a father and mother, actually, but my dad, who said, I don't know about marriage, but you have to be financially independent. And I think that changed everything about my life. It made me take decisions knowing that I was going to be responsible for what I did. And there was no expectation, but there was also no necessarily family fortune to back me up. So I think being given that freedom, but also that support and acceptance by your family and your community is incredibly important, and I hope that young people are allowed to, live for themselves. This side actually, also.
यहाँ पे पहले
But
मैं भाग रही हूँ मैं भाग रही हूँ thank you for getting us okay I'm going to get straight to the question. I have a question that in the movie, despite Lapata ladies and the whales, a lot works out, the way what happens at the station, what happens in the home that the second bride is in, what happens when she's comes back, the first bride, and how she's accepted, how the second bride goes and educates herself, what happens in the police station. And I love that. I love happy endings. But my question is, if we make it like, oh, this is so easy to solve, do we send out the message that, oh, it's just a slight aberration in our rural villages, and it'll all eventually work out like it did in that movie?
Yeah, I thank you for that question, because I genuinely do believe that it's that easy to solve. I believe that every woman just needs to stand up and say, that's it and no more. Thank you very much. I don't need you. I don't need this. And I can do it myself. And I really hope that the film conveys exactly what you think is unrealistic, because it actually, the one girl takes a small chance that she's given and changes her life. I think we all need to take those small chances that we want and change our lives. It's really not that hard, and oddly enough, I genuinely believe that when you do that, you'll find your tribe, you'll find people who support you, you will find people who are understanding, and you'll find a new family. So I do believe that. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Kiran. I want you to just indulge me. If I'm assuming right, I think you're a vegan.
I'm vegan? No, I'm not.
Oh,
no.
you're not? Okay.
Sorry.
Then the question doesn't apply, but I was just wondering about the Kalakand in the movie, Lapata Ladies. How did you think of Kalakand?
Oh, it was Sneha, actually, the screenwriter.
Yeah.
I think she did a bunch of research on foods of the region. I'm not very sure why she thought of color. Oh, it was not Sneha. It was originally in Biplab's script, now that I think about it. Biplab had it. It's probably a thing from Bihar, I'm not sure. But Biplab had it in his script, and we kept it. Yeah, it's an unusual thing to have. I mean, jalebi, we all know, and maybe, some other kind of mithai, but Kalakand is a little bit more unusual.
We'll take just two more questions there, and then there was a gentleman there.
Yeah, he's there.
Hi, Kiran. My question is actually, by the way, first, I definitely think Lapata Ladies should have won the Oscars. So I think all of us think the same. And my question is along the same lines. It's around representation. It's around our languages and our culture. So it's about humans in the loop. A lot of the online content is not in our language. It's not in any of the regional languages. It's like we are a huge part of the population of the global world, but our representation online is very few. Yeah. So did you address, or would you get a chance to address that as a part of Humans in the Loop, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm really looking forward to it?
Actually, Humans in the Loop, interestingly, is exactly about that. It's about, the fact that a lot of labor and a lot of, I think, systems that go into AI are actually completely unequal and do not actually adequately represent the global south at all. It's about, the film is about a woman from Jharkhand who works in a data labeling center. It's actually entirely based on research. And the film actually questions how in sort of these data sets that AI is being fed, whether we as, people who are not from developed countries are even being included. So it's about inclusivity, it's about actually representation and equity in within AI systems. So it's I think a film I would love for everybody to watch. We are hoping that at some point it will be on a streaming platform. We're hoping to have more screenings even in the US. But it's, I think, a really, really topical film because everybody, one is the ecological question, of course, of and what's happening with AI across with resources. But this is actually not being talked about at all. And it's a really interesting perspective. So I'd love for you to see it. It's hopefully going to be out soon. It's in cinemas in India now in a limited release. Thanks. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to take any more.
My name is Sanjay. Can you hear me all right? Yes, okay, good. Where do you find your authenticity? It's easy to get biased. It's easy to get somebody else's agenda on your mind. It seems to be, and you exude a lot of authenticity. Where does it come from?
Interesting, sir. I don't think about it actually. I think I've been inordinately fortunate actually. I had, of course, like I said earlier, I had the great privilege of coming from a family that believed in education for women. I mean, I'm the third generation of women in my family. My grandmother went to college. And I feel, this is, of course, great Savarna privilege at the end of the day, but it's at the end, it was still something that my grandmother's own sister was not given. She was the youngest girl in the family and managed to go to college. And I feel a lot of what I am is because I come from a family of people who believe that women should, be given equal opportunity, given rights, loved the same way as they would a son and all the rest of it. And I suppose I again had the great privilege of going to great schools, being surrounded by a wonderful community of people. It's just made me who I am. I have incredibly wonderful parents. I think they are the reason I am what I am. But thank you. I'm glad to know it. You feel that.
I think we all feel your generosity and your curiosity, and obviously your brilliant filmmaking, which is I think is a really impossible combination to sustain, but you somehow have managed to do it. I want to leave you with two lines from a Marathi poet. I've translated them for it, and it basically said, "Lapata to hona tha, lekin zameen sitaro ke saath." Wow. So let us end with that. Wow. It's a translation of a poem by my father. So
wow.
So Jai Bhim, onward, love, life, and liberation.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank you all. I especially want to thank the organizers of Sala, Kiran, Ambika, Jenna, Suman. I mean everyone. Suman, Mayuranki, all the volunteers. It's really not felt like I've been, I usually go to events and I can't wait to leave. And here I've really felt so welcomed and so much at home, and I've enjoyed all the conversations. I've enjoyed all the people I've met. It's wonderful to see this diverse group of people here. So thank you for doing this and thank you for having me.